Hi, everyone. I'm Kyle Rollins, and I'm one of the 4 co-founders of Big Oakland, this space. Big Oakland is a co-working space for the architecture, engineering, and construction industry. So we have all kinds of folks who are involved with the built environment, who hold events here, take drop-in space when they come in for just a little bit of time, or across the street from the Oakland Building Department and the State Architect's office. We have permanent desks on the side, so if you want to stay for longer, we're open for business as well. This is actually our second location, and we're extremely grateful for IIDA to be here today because this is in fact our first week in the new space. We were on 15th and Webster for the last year and change, and this is day 4 in the new space. So thank you everyone for christening the space, and it's been great fun to see it sort of come together. So thank you everyone.
Yes, thanks for having us. So I'm here to introduce Trevor, who's going to be our moderator for our panel. Trevor Krogan was born and raised in the East Bay, and he's the 3rd-generation educator, and then came over to the dark side into industry and has co-founded the One Workplace Learning Environments, a group dedicated to designing dynamic spaces for teaching and learning. And Trevor has consulted with some high-profile groups, IDO, Stanford D School, Girls Garage. Emily's going to be here on our panel. UC Berkeley. Oh, she just walked in. Oh, hello. Come on up.
Emily, tell us.
And Trevor has a degree in education from University of Montana in Missoula,
Nice.
and now is an MBA student at UC Berkeley at Haas Business School. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Lauren. Good evening, everybody. I couldn't be happier to be in the center of the universe, Oakland, California, tonight. Let's give it up for the East Bay, everybody. Go Oakland. Lauren mentioned this, but I am East Bay born and raised, so born and raised in Hayward and a proud resident of the East Bay. This is going to be a great night tonight, guys. This is going to be amazing. Looking to my left here, we have 3 panelists who could be keynote speakers and frankly are keynote speakers around the country. And so getting all 3 of them together on the same stage in a format like this in a relatively small room is really amazing. So thanks to all of you for being here. We're going to learn more about you and your work in a moment. But first, I want to learn a little bit about you guys. Lauren mentioned that I'm a 3rd-generation educator, so bear with me. I used to teach 12-year-olds all day long. So I'm going to do a thing I did with 12-year-olds when I was a teacher. So get ready to stand up, okay? We want to learn about you and who you are. So get ready to stand up and say, "That's me." All right, I'm going to give you a prompt, and you say, "That's me," if it applies to you. So I'm an architect. That's me. That's right. You gotta say that's me. Come on, guys. You gotta play. You're not very good. You're great architects, clearly, not good instruction followers. Okay, try it again. I'm an architect. That's me. Okay, I am a designer. I am a parent. I'm a thinker. There you go, good. They all stand up. I am a leader. I'm an artist. I'm an athlete. What is an athlete, really? We have any bowlers out there? I am a Cal Bear. Go Bears. There we go. Right on. Bears in the house. I am somebody who believes that the work that I do every day has impact in the community in which I live. There we go. That's me. All right, guys. Thank you for participating. Grab your seats again. On that note, what's our purpose tonight? Why are we here? We are here to talk about an important subject and a big subject. We're talking about the future. We were talking about how design and the toolkit of design can be used to impact the communities in which we live. And we, as I mentioned, have an incredible panel. Just to brag about the friends to my left here, between the group up here, 2 million TED Talk views on this panel. Yeah, an incredible group of leaders and women that I'm honored to share the stage with tonight. So I'm going to give you like 30 seconds on each of them, and then they're going to spend a few minutes telling you about their lives and their work. We're going to do some Q&A, and then we're going to open the stage to you guys. So sound like a plan? Yeah. All right, let's go. To my left is my friend Emily, and Emily and I have known each other for probably 3 years now,
Yeah.
3 years. We've worked together. Emily came in hot this evening, I think from teaching or conducting a workshop at Girls Garage. She is the founder of Project H Design and Girls Garage in Berkeley. Her first crush as a young woman was MacGyver. So that gives you a hint into some of the work that she does. This is Emily Pilliton. To Emily's left is Deanna Van Buren, and Deanna is the design director at Designing Justice and Designing Spaces. She is also the co-founder of the space in which we all sit this evening, Big Oakland. And we're going to hear, I hope, a lot this evening about restorative justice centers. And if you have not seen the TED Talk that Deanna did on the subject, it's 15 minutes that you will not be sorry you spent on it. This is Deanna. Welcome, Deanna. And to Deanna's left is Osha Wilson. Osha Wilson might have the biggest cheering section in here tonight, and I know this because Osha is one of our friends and customers at One Workplace. Thank you, Osha. And we have a whole crew here, One Workplace in the house. Anybody? Yeah, right on. Thank you guys for coming. And we've done a lot of great work together. Osha works at Google, and she is a real estate project executive, an expert, I don't know if you're going to talk about this tonight, but in nimble design. Which I think is fascinating. And she is also one of the co-founders of Big Oakland, the space in which we sit. So, Osha Wilson. All right, this is going to be fun. And with that, I think we have Deanna up first. So, Deanna, there you go. There's a clicker. Stage is yours.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. I just want to talk a little bit about designing justice, designing spaces. What we're passionate about, and just give a few short examples, because sometimes people are like, you're designing for what? So we are architects and real estate developers. Kyle Rollins is my business partner in this organization. And we are really looking towards systemic change, right? So, oops, did I go too fast? Oh, there we go. We're looking towards systemic change. But I didn't really start that way. I think I'm supposed to do a little biography of myself, in that I started out doing a lot of corporate architectural work. I worked all over the world for like Bovis Lend Lease, doing tons of retail, high-end retail in Asia and Malaysia, in China, in Europe, and in the Middle East. And I started to really question what the value was of me designing better places for people to shop. Like, that wasn't really quite doing it for me. And I also was starting to see gross inequities around the world, and I came back to the United States, to California. I'm from Virginia. And I started to see that the public interest design movement had emerged, and that I could start to practice for 100% of our community, that I could start to practice for very low-income communities, that I could practice for people who look like me. So it was a whole sort of idea of like, how do I do that? And so I quit. I quit my job at Perkins & Will. And I was able to start working on a video game, but mostly I was starting to work on something that I had become very passionate about, which was this system and changing this system. And that the United States was incarcerating more of its citizens than any country in the world. We have about 7 million of our citizens under some form of carceral control. It's about 1 in 8 of us. That's an extensive amount of people. And what is the role of the designer and the architect in addressing these kinds of intensely racist and structural institutions that are in our communities? What do we do? Because this is what we were doing. Right? So as designers, as architects, we were building the infrastructure that supported that system, from courthouses to prisons to detention centers. And so the question was like, well, why can't we begin to design to restore? And restorative justice became something I was very passionate about. Like, how do we design for an alternative type of justice system that's about reparation, accountability, healing, and peacemaking? How do we design for a different kind of future where we don't incarcerate our citizens, but we help rehabilitate and restore our citizens and those who've been harmed? And so we started by talking a lot to incarcerated men and women who had been on both sides of the offense often, right? They'd both been victim and offender. We were working in a jail in San Francisco County, and 100% of the women in that jail were survivors of sexual violence, 100%. And they were incarcerated for various things. So that's the reality of an average person who's in prison or jail. And so what we started to do as an organization, we looked at how do we keep people out of the system altogether, so they never go anywhere near it. And so those projects ended up being done with a lot of different types of program partners. So we're the place people, and we have a program in place model. And so, for example, with the Center for Court Innovation, we designed a peacemaking center for the first time that this country was bringing Native American peacemaking practices into a non-Native community. So elders in the community would be addressing the harm in the community. You're not going to court, you're getting diverted, and you're coming into peacemaking process. This is a Navajo peacemaking process. We designed a center for that so that now people understand that actually this is what justice could look like, right? It doesn't look like a courtroom. It actually is coming to a home where there's a kitchen and soft furniture, and I can sit and I can talk to the person who's harmed me. Another project that you'll be able to see soon is in East Oakland called Restore Oakland, which is the country's first center for restorative justice and restorative economics, and where our real estate developer and design expertise came together, helped them locate the building, buy the building, and then also renovate the building. So we gutted the building, and on the ground floor will be a restaurant that trains low-wage restaurant workers to get living wage jobs in fine dining, to break the racial divide, hiring a lot of ex-offenders. On the top floor, Ella Baker Center and other community organizing groups will have their headquarters here. And then it will also have the county's first dedicated spaces for restorative justice. So young people ages 15 to 25 are getting diverted out of court, and they're coming here. So they have a chance of not going to prison and not going to jail, right? That's all what diversion does, right? Create jobs and create places for people to heal. And so reentry matters too, right? People already in, we want to keep them out. And what we find is housing is a real issue. And so another project we're working on in East Oakland and hopefully in other places is a reentry campus. We're working with Black churches to take existing property they have and to adaptively reuse it so that they can stay in place and that reentering citizens have a place to go. And so the Hope Reentry Campus has all kinds of facilities for them. 40 men will be able to live here. They'll be able, there's a gym, places where their family can come see them. They will be able to get training. There's classrooms. They can get therapy there so that they can re-enter their community. And at the same time, we have a workforce development opportunity. So we're starting to stack functions that not just restorative justice, but restorative economics. So these men are developing these pieces we call pods, or mobile refuge rooms, because often 15 and 20 of them will be in one room for 2 years with just a bed and a little side table. These refuge rooms will give them privacy and dignity. We design them with them, and they're now fabricating them at Laney College. So formerly incarcerated men and women are learning digital fabrication skills so they have living wage jobs and a dignified place to live. And so the last project I'll talk about is the Pop-Up Village. This is the exploration of mobile infrastructure because buildings are expensive, as we all know. And so we are in communities that are deeply, deeply depressed, right? Where they've been under-resourced for maybe 100 years, right? This is a long time, a long-standing inequity where everyone's talking about inequity and we see it. And so the Pop-Up Village brings a constellation of resources to these communities and activates blighted sites through a whole constellation of social services and uses and retail and activities. We have one tomorrow, so if you're around, please come to West Oakland BART. It's awesome. It's from 3 to 8. I'll show a little video, but we've made pop-up shops so that people, micro-entrepreneurs, can come and pop up on the street and on sidewalks and in parking lots. We've taken buses and we've been stripping them back, turning them into classrooms. Noel actually was a great supporter of this project and donated the furniture for the interior of this. And people are choosing to go to school in the vehicle now rather than to the bricks and mortar site. So it crosses turf lines and brings GED and high school education to those re-entering their communities from jail, and it anchors our village. We have a mobile women's refuge center. This is for women released from jail in the middle of the night and also for survivors of sex trafficking. I don't know if you know, Oakland has a horrific a problem with young girls being trafficked. And this vehicle comes, they can come in here, they can take a rest, break, meet with a caseworker, and get access to resources. Very small intervention, but actually what may be the most successful one. And so they all come together, and I just have a quick video. I feel like I'm supposed to push that little slide thing, but I gave you the video. There you go. That's Designing Justice, Designing Spaces.
Okay, Design for Impact, I think we're off to a good start this evening. That was incredible. I looked at what Deanna sent over a couple of days ago, and I'm like, no way we get within 15 or 20 minutes on this. You hit that in 7. You were a pro.
I told you I knew I'd go over 5, but I'm like, I'll keep it tight.
Boom, you nailed it. That was awesome. All right, Osha, you were up next, and I think the clicker is right behind Emily.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to scoot forward so I can see the slides. I can't quite remember what I did on Wednesday. It's like that. My friend and colleague Deanna here mentioned inequality, and it's a major problem for everyone in the entire world. And my hope as a human being is that those who do hold power are aware and are doing everything they can from the inside to direct that power in a good way. So I work at Google, and that happens to be a place where there are lots of us on the inside who believe in using your power for good. Here's my little bragging rights page. My title is Google Real Estate Project Executive, specifically in the Bay Area. That means when Google hires you to do a project, I'm your client. And before that, I used to work in a small firm that I owned. I'm also co-founder of Big Oakland. I wrote a book one time, whatever. So I also have my MBA from Haas, yeah. So I ended up at Google leading projects, which are really fun. And that bike is not even a prop, like we really ride those around. There are 3 respects that guide everybody no matter what they work on at Google, which is about 100,000 people. And so some people are coding the internet, whatever that means, and some of us are building office spaces for the people who make the internet, and everything in between, right? But all of us are responding to 3 respects, and one of those is you respect the user. Now, if you're making the internet, that means those of us getting on google.com. For me, that means the people who sit in my office spaces. We respect each other as coworkers, and we respect the opportunity. The opportunity is a reference to the scale at which Google operates. Like when you have 100,000 employees and you're everywhere in the world, and the internet is actually controlled by your company in some large way, you take that seriously, right? And you think about what that means all the time. So for me, I don't control the internet, but I do build a lot of space, and I spend a lot of money. And I try to do that in some really thoughtful ways. We think a lot about inclusive workspace, and here are some bullet points about the ways that we think about inclusive workspace when we're designing it. We think about accessibility beyond the code minimum, and that's an ever-changing target because there are so many different ways that a person can be disabled. We think of inclusivity, including neurodiversity, in the industry that Google operates in has a higher percentage of people who are on the autism spectrum and who have other neurodiversity issues. And so that matters in the layouts. It matters when you're making decisions about open layout. About 10% of our office spaces are enclosed to respond to that. We also make an effort to employ a lot of vets who have PTSD and are not as comfortable in an open office environment. And yet we find that open offices are the key to innovation, so there's a lot of balancing that happens. We are always trying to be inclusive of gender diversity, and that includes the idea that gender is non-binary, so that's part of our focus of our design decisions. Trying to be aware of even things like allergies. We're very dog-friendly as a company, so I don't know if everybody knows that, it's kind of a thing. And religious diversity, so I make an effort to avoid leather. We have meditation rooms. There's just a lot of very small decisions that I really hope add up. We also, pretty pictures. I threw in some pretty pictures. We're so spoiled though. Look at that. Okay, so I also think a lot about healthy workplace, and super clean indoor air quality is one of those things. We spend a lot of money on our HVAC. It's because, healthy people think clearer, it turns out. It makes them smarter. and lots of things, enhanced flush out, material toxicity, all of those things. A lot of this feels like something we don't need to talk about anymore because it's 2019 and come on, like this should be pretty standard. We also designed to encourage movement in lots of ways. So all of our desks are sit-stand, there are treadmill desks. We celebrate connection staircases. We have gyms in the workplace, bike parking, showers and lockers to encourage biking. We build pedestrian pathways. We have bikes all over the place for free usage. We will even provide bikes to commute with for free, e-bikes. So that's a huge focus. Healthy consumption, hydration stations. We actually hide the snacks that are really good. Design decisions that tip the scale, right? Just push you a little bit. We do encourage mindfulness in the workplace. Includes massage rooms and massage chairs and meditation rooms and nap pods and lush gardens and game rooms. And it's sort of about spoiling people so that they want to work at Google. But it's also sort of about the fact that people who are calmer and take time to give space in their lives for their minds to go blank are also just better citizens and smarter and better at controlling the internet or whatever they do, right? And then other things that we do just specifically for cognitive support about view and sunlight and biophilia, all of these things to help those smart Googlers be even smarter. Here's some more pretty pictures. Yay. And the third one, actually I have 4. So the third and fourth slides I think of as being really about that respect the opportunity, the sustainability piece. I have to talk the least about because it's built into the project guide requirements for all of our projects. Water and energy efficiency, LEED equivalency, LEED certification on STEM buildings, living building challenge is happening on our first large building, landfill diversion, and furniture reuse when the scale allows. So all of that is happening very successfully. I don't even have to really talk about it much. More pretty pictures. And the last one is I have a ton of autonomy in my role about who I hire, and I use that very carefully. So I make an effort to buy local. I make an effort to source socially responsible goods. I hire small businesses whenever the project type allows. We try to find minority-owned businesses where it's appropriate, and I always champion women. Women-owned businesses, but also internally. I'm that person who will shame the GC for showing up with 10 guys for an interview. Like they couldn't find any women in the entire construction industry to hire or something. So I take all of those very seriously, and none of those are policy, interestingly enough, where I work. None of those are written in or measured, and it's totally up to the individual to care enough to go out of their way. So those are some of the things that I think about in trying to move the needle with all that Google money. And for a little bit of context of how many projects, I'm not allowed to tell you how many projects. It's a secret. Everything is a secret all the time. But what I can tell you is what I found in the IRS filings, which is public knowledge, regarding how much space. So I was lazy and didn't update this for 2018. These are 2017 numbers, so everything's bigger now. But what you can see is, by comparison, Microsoft's headquarters is 15 million square feet. Facebook's headquarters are 3 million square feet. Google's were 11 million square feet. Again, that's as of the end of 2017 in the headquarters region alone, because nobody reports field offices. Plus, we've grown at a very healthy rate since then, so healthy that we're all breathing heavy. And the older portfolio is now hitting the 15-year mark, which means it's all getting renovated, right? So if you can think about that and the fact that I am one of more than a dozen people in the Bay Area alone who do my job, there are a lot of projects and a lot of opportunities to use that power for good. And I think those are the last pretty pictures. Yeah.
Osha, thank you. Okay, Emily, you're up next. Tell us
Okay.
about cool things you do.
5 minutes, here we go. Okay, hi everybody, I'm Emily Pillaton. I wanted to start with this picture. This is me on the left here at age 15. And I wanted to start with this because I realized when I was putting this together that now, can't do math, it's past 6 o'clock. 23 years later, this is basically still my life. I love building and I love working with young people, and that started for me as a young person. And so I also wanted to show you this because this is how I think about design as a source of power, and that this was truly the first moment in my own life as a young person where I felt like I had power and voice to make something real and to make something that would have an impact in the world beyond just the time that I was there. So this sort of shaped the rest. I didn't know it at the time, of course. What do you know when you're 15? But I can look back at it now and point to this as a really seminal moment of when I started to connect the idea of design and building to power and being present and political and active in my community. So fast forward to 2008, and I had studied architecture. I had a very similar moment of quitting a job in corporate/retail architecture. I can tell you that later. But yeah, just a lot of frustration with the way that my work as an architect and designer had become so detached from that feeling that I had as a 15-year-old. And so to make a very long story short, in 2008, I took that frustration and I founded a nonprofit called Project H Design, which was supposed to be a name that I would later change because it's not a great name, but I had a lot of H words on a napkin that I scribbled and was like, I'm gonna call it Project H, I'll change it later, and it's been 11 and a half years and I didn't. But the idea here was I just wanted to find a way to practice design and building that felt more like the previous photo, and that design and building could be connected to community. It could be fulfilling as an individual. It could be real, like hands in the mud making stuff and not just doing AutoCAD. That was a really big problem for me. And so all that added up to what would become Project H. And that work over the past 11 years has mostly centered on doing design build work with young people. So these first two images, I began working with high school students in a rural school district in North Carolina. I won't tell the whole story, but there's a film about it called If You Build It, if you want to see the sort of project unfold. But I was working with students that had never built anything before. And so part of my job, I felt, was to help them feel the same way I did as a young person, that through the act of building, you were taking space, you were making statements in your community, you were taking a leadership role. This was also in a school district that was highly underperforming. Kids were vastly underestimated. And I wanted to prove so badly that like the youth are often underestimated, and yet they can be the shepherds of like really incredible change. So this is a chicken coop that was built by these kiddos. We then went on to take on human architecture, not just chicken architecture. And so our project, which we promised to the mayor that we would complete, was to build a farmer's market pavilion, which ended up being this 2,000 square foot beast of a thing that my students took classes all throughout the year to design, and then over the summer constructed. So these are some of their models. This is laying the joists for the decking. And then the final building, I skipped over a lot, but this is the final building. This was designed and built by teenagers. And so the point here was also like this proof of concept that kids are so brilliant, and without them, we as adults often lose some of our own vision. The other thing about working with youth for me that was so inspiring is that great work with youth begets more great work with youth. So following this project, another group of students designed and built these little micro pop-up farm stands around the rest of the county. And then after being in North Carolina for a few years, I actually brought this program back to the Bay Area, where it's currently based at Realm Charter School in Berkeley. And obviously very different than rural North Carolina, but also very much the same. Like kids are both very different and also very much the same. So the projects in Berkeley have reflected obviously a different geographic and demographic context, but the soul of it is the same. Like how can youth use design to have a say in the world? So this is a project that my students worked on to design and build tiny homes for a homeless, or an organization that serves homeless on a transitional housing basis. So these were two. They were sort of like mirror images of each other. And then I guess I'll end with this, that I love working with kids, I love working with high school students, and I also believe that like some of the best work happens in the smallest micro communities. And so in doing that work with high school students, I began working more with my female students as just groups of girls, and some of the behavioral shifts were just like very hard to ignore when it was just me and 3 female students. There was a lot of self-censoring that would happen in the co-ed environment. There was a lot of like, oh, I got this, give me the saw from some of the male students, which I've also experienced on construction sites, and just, we know the story. And so I started this sort of offshoot program called Girls Garage, which I'm repping right now, and I just came straight from there. And Girls Garage has become sort of I think, the thing that I was born to do. Girls Garage is a physical space. We partnered with One Workplace on helping to bring it to life. And it's in Berkeley. It's a 3,600 square foot wood shop and metal shop. We do screen printing and lock picking and welding and all kinds of things. Lock picking for good, not evil. And I think I'll just say 2 things about it. One is I think there are not enough spaces for young women to feel safe to be brave. It's very hard to be brave when you feel unsafe. And so one of the ways we think about the space is to remove all of the BS barriers that girls feel in other spaces and just let them do the thing. So if you walk in and you say, I want to learn how to weld, and you're 9 years old, I'm going to teach you how to weld. Like, end of story. The second thing I want to say about it is that there are things that are easy to teach. I can teach you how to weld in probably 10 minutes. But the real powerful thing, I think, for young girls is to see how that skill connects to either a career or their community, or even college, or just what does it mean in the larger identity of your world. So all of the work that we do culminates with work that lives in the community, is done for community clients. So these were some shelves that a group of 24 girls built together in a modular way for a local women's shelter. This is actually also for the women's shelter. This is our Teen Institute, which is a free summer program. And girls built these 2 and 6 other planter boxes for the front yard, as well as a picnic table and a welded kitchen shelf for the women's shelter. And then this is a greenhouse that was built for a local community garden. So the grand purpose is to come together and to feel safe to do brave things, and then to connect those brave things to larger things happening in the world, and really to be okay with the idea that design and building as a group of young women is political, can be political, and can be a form of protest even, and that's a really powerful thing. And so I would end with that original slide of me as a 15-year-old that, there I am as a 37-year-old, but really this all feels the same to me. So it's also really great to be a part of this conversation. I think we all do very similar work in different ways. And that's it. Thank you. Oh, wait, no, that's not it. Last image. I just wanted to share this image because I took this image was like an accidental moment. We were doing this video shoot. This is Erica Chu, who some of you have met, one of my longest term camper girls, and she was doing this video photo shoot welding, and this 6-year-old girl from the ballet school next door walked by and was like, what is happening? She was just standing there and watching this for like 10 minutes, and then her dad walked up and she said, look, Dad, it says Girls Garage on the wall. And so I just wanted to share this photo because I think there are so many ways to be strong girls and strong women, not just in design and building, and yet there are not enough spaces that bring together this type of conversation. So thank you. That's it.
So is everyone sufficiently convinced that we have some badasses up here to my left? There we go. All right. So I'm going to get out of the way in a minute so we can hear more from them, and then open up time for you guys to ask questions, because I'm sure you have a lot. But I do want to add just a couple pieces of context for Girls Garage. It is one of the smallest projects I've ever worked on, and it is one of the most meaningful that I've ever worked on and that our team worked on. So if you have an opportunity, go to a workshop at Girls Garage, sign your daughter up for something at Girls Garage. My little 2-year-old daughter Alana's name is on the wall, and I hope she ends up there at some point very soon. So can completely vouch for the work you're doing there. It's amazing. Okay, so first question, the way we're going to do this, we'll just open it up to the panel. So just take it as you are inspired. I'll ask a few of these, and then we'll open it up to the group. So subject du jour is design for the future. And I heard a ton about work that's impactful right now, but I heard a lot of aspiration about what could be and what might change and what the future could look like that it doesn't look like today. So talk to me about your work, about your vision, about your passions around the way the world is today and how we can use the toolkit of design to build a different future.
Can't just ask what we had for lunch. I mean, I can say one thing that just because we have a very clear vision for the future. Like the vision is that restorative justice becomes the primary way of addressing harm in our communities. That's that we want to see our levels of incarceration go back to the levels that they were in the 70s, which is significantly less. And we want to see that money divested and reinvested in the communities that were decimated by the policies and the systemic decisions that were made for that to happen. So we'd like that to happen by 2050. So by 2050, we will see that happening. And then when I say, hey, who's been to a peacemaking center? Everybody in the room will raise their hand.
Same question. Others? All right, I have more.
Go for it, Emily.
The future is like such a my husband who's sitting back there in the back.
Hey, Victor.
Hi, Victor. I sometimes, when we talk about being married, and we're married forever, and I always say, well, forever is now. And I kind of feel the same way about the future. Like the future sounds like it's a great way to think about our goals and our dreams and where we want to go to, but I also feel like for me the future is like if I don't practice what I want to see in the future now, then like how are we going to get there? I think in terms of gender and working with young girls, obviously there are so many things I would like to change, but I try to model like a microcosm of what I would like to see in the rest of the world, at least within my one space. So that's like kind of an existential commentary on how I think of the future, but I do think like perhaps one thing that designers could do to be thinking about the future is actually to think at a sort of smaller scale, like what are, not like in terms of time, but in terms of values, and what are the things that we want to see 5, 10, 50 years from now, and then how can we practice those in small ways every day right now, because that's the only way they're going to become scalable is if we start small.
Thank you for that. Yeah. I'll talk about something that's not Google to add to my vision for that. The book that I wrote was about integrated project delivery, which is a very structured format for trying to figure out how architects and contractors and owners share each other's interests. And that dovetails with Big Oakland in the sense that one of my big interests is why can't we share more to make each other stronger? And my hope for the future is that the next time that there's downturn, and this is a very tangible, real thing that will happen soon, right? The next time there's a downturn is that my community, of which you are all a part, my community I feel really connected to is the AEC industry, for one, that you don't get pummeled the way that I saw so many of my colleagues just brought down to, like many of them just left. They just couldn't take it anymore. They just left the industry and they never came back. And I had this vision for this co-working space as being the solution to that, that you are sharing a space, that you're sharing personnel, hey Brittany, that you're sharing, a design library, Rachel, that you're sharing all of those things so that when the hard times come that we stick together. And I think that that's an idea that probably in some way extends to the really amazing work that both of these two panelists are doing too.
I'm not going to have an opportunity to ask a lot of questions, and that's good. I'm going to ask one more. And I think that's a great segue. Osha, you talked about personal and small, and I heard a lot about scale, and we heard pop-ups and micro communities. So this is an incredible range of panelists who do work on a grand scale that are taking on big, hairy seemingly intractable problems. But all three of you have chosen to build and participate in a small local space that is about the same size. Girls Garage is probably about the same size as this one. So talk about that. Talk about taking on big challenges and working at scale, and then also zooming down into the community and into the micro level, specifically with these physical spaces that all three of you have brought to life in our community.
That's too hard. Do you know what I was talking about? Go for it, because I don't even know where to start.
I'll just say at least 5 times a week someone asks me, when are you going to put a girls' garage in every city?
Yeah.
And I always say I'm not. And they're like, what? And that's not because I don't think that there should be more girls programming like Girls Garage ever. It's because I feel this is the architect in all of us. Like, everything is based on context and who's in the space and who are your neighbors are and who the leaders are. Like, everyone says, oh, like founder syndrome, but honestly, like, the people in my space are the reason why the girls are there. Like, you cannot copy and paste that. And so I always have felt, if I think back to the places and people in my own life who have truly like transformed something for me, it was always something small. So I guess I just don't know. I don't know what like real impact feels like on a massive scale personally, and so therefore I think that the intimacy of the work that we do is really like where the magic is. Like, I don't know. Like, I just spent 20 minutes trying to help a 10-year-old girl make her chair leg look like a cat paw. Like, that's how I spent my evening. And if I don't get to do that, then I don't know how to write grants. I don't know how to do all the big things. I can't think big unless I understand like the heart of the smallest moment like that. So maybe there are some leaders that can do that, but to me that's like really, if you lose that, you've lost everything.
And I'll rephrase that one a little bit, because Osha, I think you're right. That was a complex question. I'm up here thinking and writing. Just talk about the importance of the work that you've done here at Big Oakland. You've created a space in this community, and talk about why you did that. What was the experience that you had that brought you to the place where you guys partnered up with 2 other professionals to create this physical space we're all sitting in?
It feels big to me. It doesn't feel like a small intervention. It's a heavy lift to start a business. Am I right, Jana? Like, you've done it a few times. I've done it a couple times. It's a heavy lift, and it's one of those things that takes a community, and if our community doesn't think it's a good idea and doesn't spread the word, then it won't work, right? And 4 of us are carrying that burden, but 4 of us are inspiring, hopefully, dozens of people. So we'll see where that takes us. You want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's coming to mind is the power of ideas. And that these are seeds that are in your mind that you might be questioning. You're like, I don't know if that's a good idea. I don't know if I should do that. Or you're afraid, I can't do that. But the ideas are gifts that you've been given that you have an obligation to manifest. That's sort of the way that I see it. And I think everybody has those. And if you stop questioning it too much, and if fear does not get in your way, it's always there. It's like your little friend on the side. You can do incredible things. You know, Emily's work actually inspired me when I first started, right? So making the table leg look like the cat paw actually influenced I mean, I remember when I first started, I was like, yeah, like that. I mean, like what she's doing, right? This is how we can practice as designers and architects. So when I found Osha and this sort of idea that she had, I was also a small practitioner trying to convince the world to make peacemaking centers. You know, that was like, we've got to do it this way. And she's like, you know, Osha's like, we should all be working together, and then we can all help each other get there. And that's kind of what's happened, really. Big Oakland has helped Designing Justice, Designing Spaces get established, look professional, even though we're just in the corner over there, like 3 little people. And we've been able to take on bigger projects. We've been able to be more fluid and it's really worked for us. So this sort of collaborative sharing, inspiring, a place where ideas can happen and we can support each other in manifesting them has impact well beyond Oakland. Well beyond Oakland. And we even had a call yesterday with another co-working space for the building industry in Detroit called Space Lab. And we're going to start to create a connection of these places all over the country of AEC industry co-working spaces that help us as a place-based solution. So we'll see what happens.
Okay, well, let's open it up to you guys. I want to make sure we stay on time track here and that you guys have an opportunity to ask questions. So I'll walk around. I'll bring the microphone around. Is there anybody that would like to start? All right. Here you go, Paula.
Emily, your program really interests me, and I wondered if you ever thought about offering it to women of different age groups. Because we also maybe don't have the same kind of confidence doing the kinds of things that even younger girls are doing in your program.
So yes, and we actually have, we've done 2 week-long summer camps for grown-up women, grown-up girls.
Yay!
Yeah, this summer we're not doing it though because our wait list was too,
Wow.
yeah.
See?
But we do mother-daughter builder boot camps. The cross-generational work is so amazing. And that's something we're gonna try to be building out. I have one instructor who's especially excited about adult programming.
I'll keep
so
a lookout on your website.
Yeah, or you can come for a corporate workshop. Bring your people.
I like it. I like it.
All right, who's next?
Thank you for all 3 of you here, and I'm so proud of Trevor got a whole woman panel. That's really amazing, and I really appreciate all the work you guys all did together to advocate for women, for the community which haven't been served much. I have a question for that. So I have a daughter who's 6 years old, and I take her to this program in Home Depot, which is once a month. They have this kids Home Depot day. So she loves it to go there, like build something. So, and there are a lot of Home Depot around the country. And my thoughts are, can you kind of put that program into this whole girls' garage kind of thing? Because there's so many girls there, they love to get the pins, they love to make things. And I just feel like there could be something can be done to involve more girls, and there could be like a bigger project to have a huge impact. I just wonder if you ever thought about that, which I would love to say, my daughter, I think I should bring her to your place. And I enjoy the moment to see her, like she finished building a product, and this moment of enjoyment is really amazing. So I just thought that might be something I want to talk to you about.
Yeah, I didn't know about that. I also wonder who teaches those programs. Just question. No, I think you bring up like a really good point about the larger subject that we're talking about tonight, that there are corporations and entities that are enormous that we do need to have as partners, because even though what I just said about the small scale and the intimacy, like there are models of scale that are smart, that don't feel like drag and droppable and then you lose everything. So we're not quite there yet, but I'm excited to see which large scale corporations are blazing a trail to do more work like that, and to, frankly, to be supporting and partnering with small potatoes organizations like us. That I'm not the United Way, but I do think that's where a lot of the impact happens. So I hope that there becomes a greater connection between those two.
Okay, anybody have one for Deanna or Osha?
You don't have to.
Come up to the front here.
Hi, thank you all for being here. My question is around the work that you're doing for restorative justice and restorative economics and working with local governments and policies, and how have you managed that and working with like local politicians, and what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, it often looks like partnering very closely with grassroots entities and community organizers. So for example, we are working in Atlanta with the mayor's office there, the Bloomberg Group, and Racial Justice Action Coalition and Women on the Rise, formerly incarcerated women who are really looking to change policy around the closing of a jail. So it's very interesting to be engaged in politics in that way and be in the room trying to help them make decisions. Like first you need to change the policy to let out the last 100 people that are in there, not just move them to another jail. And then how do we work with the community, like from our end of things, as designers and developers or thinking around finance, to sort of say, look, you can turn this into something that's really restorative for the community. Let us show you, right? Let us work with the community to show you. So, and we do it by following and listening to folks who are a little more politically savvy than we are, because I didn't go to school for politics, so it's always a new and interesting arena to be involved with as a designer and an architect. So.
Also, a question for you. A couple months ago, I was down in LA for the Architecture and Design Film Festival premiere of the Frank Gehry film. Have you seen it, about prisons?
I know all about it.
And for an hour and a half or whatever,
Yes.
I was totally conflicted because
Yeah.
I do feel people should be in
Sure.
prison. But in 30 seconds, you change. I mean, I didn't even think about changing my mind. You convinced me in 30 seconds. And I think it might come back to that question that you asked, or somebody else asked about how do you expand? Yeah, scaling. And I think that I think the reason you worked in 30 seconds and Gary is not working is maybe it's because you're all women up there too. I don't know, but it's about this grassroots, and it is the scale. The way you scale is just going to be different. So I don't know if that's a question, but maybe you can comment on that.
You know, I can't remember the name of it. I just watched it the other day. I just put it Frank Gehry film, prison studio film. Yeah, I have many thoughts. But yes, I think that that's a beautiful statement, what you just said. I agree with you.
How do you get interested in prisons?
I'm interested in restorative justice. I'm not interested in any prison or any jail or any of that. I'm interested in a wholesale rethinking of how, when we harm each other, how do we heal from that? I want to design to the best that human beings can be, not the worst that we can be. And I truly believe we build what we believe. If we believe it, if we believe in punishment and that those people are not worth anything, then that's what we build in our architecture and our streetscapes and our cities. So we just have to look at what do we really believe and build for that, because it doesn't have to look the way. Society doesn't have to look like this, right? It could look really different. And if the creative people in our community, if we aren't the visionaries, if we really aren't having a different vision for the future, then who else can? We really have that capacity. It's such a wonderful capacity that creative folks have to change the future. So.
Okay, I think we have time for one more, and then I've got a final question for you guys. So this will be our last question from the audience.
This question is for any three of you. I work for a firm, and our collective why is do good exceptionally well by design. And we have a policy of not working for the military or for any, no courthouses, no prisons, anything that's going to lead to someone's incarceration. As a result, that has limited, we do a lot of work for counties and public entities, and that limits our opportunities with them. And then the other side of that is we try to do a lot of community outreach, but as a firm, we're only 35 people, and all the other work is keeping us really busy, healthcare and stuff. Why did you or any of you decide that you needed to leave that firm environment, and kind of what was the tipping point to leave and then start your own effort or something different. Do you think there's opportunity within architecture design firms to do what you're doing now, if you were to go back and do it again?
Well, I didn't leave. I actually went the opposite direction. I started, small business, worked in that for many years, and then I went to the giant corporation world. And I was prompted to do that because things changed in my life. I became a mother, and all of a sudden, intellectual freedom didn't trump, having a paycheck come in every 2 weeks reliably. And I was surprised to learn, once I had made that leap, that the power that comes with working in a giant organization can do as much in a month as I could have done in a year in my small business. And so that leaves me very conflicted with, what one should do. But everybody needs to do what they do on their own path. And without these amazing, brave women sitting next to me, carving their own path, we would all become too much alike, and the world would become more and more boring. And I do think that when somebody is willing to be as brave as the two of you and start something and change people's minds and show a vision that wasn't shown before, you may not realize it when you're in the middle of it, but some other giant power is going to see that and latch onto that idea and scale it, either with you or after you're done with your journey.
Right on. All right, I'm going to give you guys the opportunity to ask for help with something you're working on, or tell the audience about something you might want to get them involved with. So if this is sort of your quick opportunity to say, hey, we're working on this and we'd love to have you get involved. Or if you want to learn more about the things that we do or the things that I'm working on, here's how you might learn that. So to the panel, you can all take it or leave it.
I mean, don't give me your name and phone number, because I'll just come after you. People at Knoll, I was like, I want those Spark chairs. I have to have the Spark chairs. I have to have the Spark chairs. I have to have them. So Molo, I have to have that cloud light fixture. I have to have it. I just harassed Molo for a year, but I got my cloud light fixture and the wall. And the reason why is because interiors are critical to navigating fight, flight, and freeze responses when people are going into trauma-informed, traumatizing environments where they're activated. We can't just do the architecture shell. You have to have the right furniture. I wrote a whole paper about this, the kind of furniture you have to have. You have to have certain kind of finishes and furnishings. So it is really, really critical on all of our projects that it's very high quality, that we have the kinds of FF&E materials that we need so that we can be successful and have impact. I just came back from Bogota, Colombia, where I was watching, they're doing restorative justice centers there, and I saw what they were doing, and it just validated again and again that the interior design of these environments is really, really, really critical. So you can always help on our projects, always, because we always need a million things to make the environment support this cultural shift and practice. So, just put your name over there at the bowl.
And expect a follow-up.
Expect a lot of calls from me.
All right. Emily, OSHA, something that comes to mind, Emily, is Fearless 100 right now.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I should say that. Well, okay, I'll say three things. One is that obviously there's so many talented, creative people in this room. It's always fun for girls to interact with professional women, but also men who do work that they have yet to have the vocabulary to name. So I think it's really important that our girls hear, oh, I do this thing. They're like, that's a job? I can do that? So I would say, as a volunteer or a visitor, to just come and see the space and share your story with our girls. Secondly, I'm just going to put this out into the universe until it happens. Eventually, I would love to buy a building and take over a whole space and be a fixture in the community that is a much more expansive program of apprenticeship and all kinds of things for young girls. And then the third thing is, thank you for reminding me of this, Trevor. We just launched, this is my fundraising pitch. We just launched a campaign called the Fearless 100. We have 100 girls coming to us this summer for week-long design build intensives, and all of our teen girls attend for free. More than half of our 9 to 13-year-olds come at full or partial scholarship rates. And we're asking 100 friends to join us to support those 100 girls with donations of $100 or more. And actually, Kate was one of our first to do so. Yep. So that's one very tangible way. But I also would just love to invite you to see the space and see it in action, and to hopefully be involved in modeling some of those same things in the work that you do.
Right on. Big Oakland doesn't have an interior designer member at the moment. And we're trying to grow an ecosystem that supports each other. So we have a couple of different kinds of architects in the space. We don't have any interior designers. We don't have any spec writers. And those are two professions that we want in this space as members, so that we can be all referral partners for each other.
Yeah, we get a lot of requests for that, and you know, we want to be able to be like, here are our members who can help you with that.
Okay, with that, we are going to wrap. And I want to just reiterate the gratitude that we have to you, the three of you, for spending your evening with us tonight. You're amazing. Thank you for the good work you do. Thank you for the good work you do for people and our communities. And we are so grateful that we got to spend the evening with you tonight. On that note, Paula, I think, has some gifts she'd like to share.
Yes, again, just mirroring what Trevor has said. We couldn't have events like this without you folks volunteering your time, and what an honor to have these all-star panelists here tonight. So again, thank you all for being here. And as a very small token of our appreciation, we have included a gift that's behind you. And I have to give a big shout out to Kume Spa in Oakland. So they have actually this is the second year in a row that they've supported this event and have donated a 30-minute foot or body massage. So hope you all can enjoy that. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're all set. Thanks so much for coming tonight. Do everything you can to support these women and the work that they're doing, and continue to do the good work that you all do every day, and use this as inspiration to drive purpose back in your workplace. Thanks, guys.
One more thing.
Oh, sorry.
Just because I think we missed it earlier, so Design in Motion is coming up, and Girls Garage will be featured there as well. So we are fundraising for you later. So if more to come on that, but just keep an eye out for that. Thank you.
And since Allie's up here, I'm glad you stepped up, because Allie did a ton of planning work to make this happen tonight. Thank you, Allie. Great evening. Thanks, everybody.